Um, I suppose I should apologize to him. I've been carrying a secret for years and years when I ran against him. He didn't know that when I pat him on the butt, I was putting my track spikes on while he was in tennis shoes. You know, friends been telling me for weeks, Fred, it's a tremendous honor, and I'd say, yeah. But if I was asked to explain now how I feel, I guess it's a cross between laughing and crying. This is awesome. This is terrific. I'm really, really happy to be here. I'm not going to talk for a long time for several reasons. Number one, I'm not standing here because I'm a public speaker. And number two, I've got some friends that said if I talk more than 5 minutes, they're out of here. And then the cruelest blow of all, today riding in my van, my young son Curtis Johnson back there said, Dad, don't read your speech, just talk from the heart. He says, besides that, you never was a very good reader. So I'm going to try to do that. This tribute to me goes a long way back. It goes back to the time when I first came to Michigan State right after the Second World War. That was a pretty rough time for minorities, the blacks. I went to the University of Michigan and was refused entrance there. I came to Michigan State and I was accepted with open arms. At that time, there were no dormitory accommodations for minority blacks, male, at the school. And there was no accommodations at all in East Lansing for black students. Myself and people like Don Coleman and Horace Smith and Jesse Thomas and others were pretty much dedicated to make a difference. To make a difference for those who would come behind us. We were probably about, aside from maybe one additional or two additional sports figures, the first blacks to come to Michigan State. And I think we did make a difference. And to me, this represents a culmination of that type of thing. I'm forever grateful for Michigan State. But at a time like this, you kind of reflect on what got you here and the people that supported you and so forth. At this time, I think of my mother and my dad. My dad, who brought us to Michigan from the South for a better life, worked all his life as a farmer and on the railroad, but they always looked at me and I could always tell that they were behind me 100%. They didn't push me, they didn't pull me, but they were very, very proud. And that was a tremendous driving force for me. While I was here, I met Carl Slaterman, Coach Slaterman. And in my books, he was one of the greatest. Carl didn't only teach us track, but he taught us how to live. He taught us how to be people. He was a psychologist, he was a father, as I say, he was a teacher. He taught us not how to run fast, but to run correct. Foot placement, hand leverage, arm motion, the whole bit, head motion. This tribute also is to Carl. And at this moment, I'd like to pay another tribute to a young man that I've always admired, and another time and another place, probably would have been his records that would have been my task to try to break. My brother, James Johnson over here, he's totally surprised. And the others that I'd like to mention, you know, when the lights go down and the applause are not so loud anymore and people don't really care what you have to say much anymore, they don't laugh so much at your jokes. There were certain people in the business world who made sure that I stayed afloat. The first one was Gil Haley. I don't know if Gail knows I appreciate it as much as I did, but I did. And then T.J. Malarney, he called me and said he couldn't make it. And then I spotted Greg Eaton back here. Greg's thrill used to be, he always bragged that his dad used to bring him out to watch me run when he was 3 years old. And I noticed the trustee isn't here, Joel Ferguson. When I said I was going to say something about him, he disappeared. But Joel never says to me, hi, Fred. He has a nickname. He calls me Roadrunner. So whenever I see him, it's always a comment, when are you going to pay me, Roadrunner? And that's his hello. But it is a pleasure to be here. And I won't take much more time, but I have relatives and friends over here who've come all the way from California. My nephew here and Olivia, his friend. Would you please stand for a minute? Dr. Curtis was a captain of the basketball team here in the 60s. I won't say what year it was, but in the 60s. Glad to have you here. And over here, my daughter, who comes up from Texas, Judy Welch. And Katie Miles, who surprised me, yes, get up, surprised me from here in town. And my dear friend Jean McKenzie, who's waving, don't say anything. And her son and his girlfriend. Dr. Martin, how'd you get in there? Dr. Blanche Martin, ex-board of trustee. Come on, Martin. And I'll introduce my son, even though he is a Michigan graduate. Attorney Fred Johnson. You have to take his lump. And my other son over there, the one that gave me a rough time today, Curtis and his girl, Curtis Johnson. And the other one I see back there is Pasa Pastor, I believe. Would you stand? I see a lot of other faces here. I'd like to take the time to just say hi and so forth, but believe I know you're here. Thanks very much.